We are live, folks. Welcome. This is the first call of 2020, or first meeting, and the second overall episode number 2 of the Cloudways Mavericks. We're hanging out here today as we look at one of the websites that have been sent in. So first of all, thank you to everybody who sent your websites in. We've had loads of fun looking through everything. We're going to take a look at just one website today, which will be an e-commerce based website, and we're going to go through looking at things like the UX, the content marketing strategy around it, and also things like speed as well, and what can be improved on that particular website. Now, before we carry on, I want to let you know that we will be doing these every second Tuesday of the month. So we're doing it on this day as we get all the tech prepared, but from next month it will be the second Tuesday, and we'll be promoting it obviously, so do come and join us. If you can hit us up in the comments, we've got the Cloudways team with us and they are checking all the comments, so if there's any questions that they pick up on that they can put across to us during this call, then we'll happily jump on some of those live as well. So today we have chosen a website. First of all, before we tell you what that is, I would like to start with Jan, and let's work our way around, finishing with me, just as a quick intro to everyone who's on this call. Jan.
Thanks for handing this over, Lee. I'm Jan. I'm a WordPress developer from Germany. I run these weird virtual summits right now. So it's like a virtual WordCamp. Besides that, I run a WordPress agency. And on these webinars, I'll be talking about all the tech-related stuff. I'm that nerd in the group. So yeah, that's me. Piccia.
Hello. So my name is Piccia Neri. I'm Italian living in Spain, but via London. I was in London for many years, and now I bore everybody on the web talking about UX at every given opportunity. But I used to be a designer for print, so I'm very much about the pretty stuff as well, and about colors. And I love good, usable websites. I've curbed my creativity on the web in favor of good user experience. In fact, now my thing is to be creative while being really usable. So stay tuned for great experiences. Yes.
Awesome. And then
that's what I look at.
Finally, there's me. I'm Lee, and I'm a podcaster. I create a lot of content both on YouTube and on the podcast, and also I run a couple of agencies behind all of that as well. So I get to talk about things like content strategy as well as drill these guys with some extra questions that they may not have considered, because I've got a whole ton for you guys that I've got myself by looking through this particular website. So the grand unveiling of the website is about to happen. We are looking at a website called petitefox.co.za. So what we're going to do first of all is just hand over to Piccia. I would like to get Piccia's first impressions as she lands on this website, just to share with us some of the things that she feels could be some quick wins, essentially, that could be addressed on this particular homepage. And then me and Jan will probably deep dive in with some questions for Piccia as well, and then we'll work our way through. Is that good with you, Piccia?
Perfect.
Great.
So say I'm about to share my screen, so that we're all ready for the event. So share, because I believe that things need to be done technically. So I'm sharing, share. All right, so this is the homepage of Petit Fox. I have to say that first of all, I think that the logo is really cute. Because it's got a handwritten font, but it's not overdoing it, because it's a trend that can be really boring, to be honest, but it's not. It's very nice. So well done for that. And I like the orange, but I think I love, the orange of the fox is beautiful. So I love foxes. So that's all great. I think that it wouldn't be bad if you, because that pink, or that's in these circles.
Call to actions, yeah.
Of course, they're not actually, are they?
Yeah.
They are. I need to go back now. It's not what I'm going to go back. Sorry. So I think if it were a stronger color, I think it would be better. So the first impression is very nice and tidy. What I think the first thing, this is not legible. I know that probably mothers are younger than I am, but still, I find you would be surprised when you look at statistics of people, when people start having eyesight problems, it's much earlier than you think. So it's not necessarily an age related thing. This is barely legible for two reasons. First of all, because the typeface is way too thin. This is Montserrat, which is a typeface that is really nice, but it's slightly overused now, and it has some issues, which, for instance, one is this, that the thin version of it is way too thin. So I can barely see it. And also that you've quite rightly, you have an off-white, kind of pinkish, very, very light orangey background with a gray. So that's good. You don't want too strong contrast. You never want like pure black on pure white. But at the same time, the contrast here is too low, because of the size especially of the type in the menu. And if you can see in the calls to action, the shop is virtually illegible. I can't read the word shop.
Is there any particular advice you'd give us, Piccia, on the actual weight of the font? So, for example, when I launched my website a while back, I actually did go for a very similar font to this, and I went for the light, because on my screen I had a HD monitor, I had a Mac, and it looked absolutely phenomenal and fantastic. Yeah. But then I very quickly found out that most people were actually seeing it like this. Is there a particular weight? The weight I went for, I think this is probably about a 100 weight, like super thin. Yeah. So is there a weight you would recommend, especially for text like navigation, etc.?
Yeah, 400 at least, and definitely way bigger than this. I haven't inspected, and I'm not going to do that because that's not my. I leave that to Jan. But I suspect this is like, it's not. It looks like 12 pixels. I don't know if it's M's or how it's set, but it's tiny. And so yes, I would say 400 ideally, because I'm the same. I mean, on my website, I actually suffered. It cost me. It was painful to have to choose the thicker version of the font because it didn't look as pretty, but I had to, because otherwise people simply can't see it. If you look at my print work, I have so many books that I did, like art books, that have like the thinnest possible, because it looks cooler. It looks, it looks really, really nice.
So the other question I had, sorry mate, is on the color scheme as well. So we've got the buttons down there for girls and shoes, and obviously it's quite a thin font, but also how would I work out the color contrast grade? Because I've not got my glasses on, they reflect in the light, and I'm not sure about I think you mentioned a tool. So for the people who have this website, could you recommend a tool to help us understand if we're using a good enough contrast? Because I presume it'd be better to use the orange of the fox with the white as opposed to this peach.
Absolutely, it would be a much stronger contrast. You can tell visually that it's so there are very many color contrast tools, the free online tools, and I wish I remembered, because I don't have one right now because there are so many that I never bother. Well, I mean, I do know what they are, but my memory is not what it used to be. So when I will give you that, my favorite tool, as soon as one of you is talking rather than me.
No worries.
One tool actually could be contrastchecker.com. So that gives you various sizes and contrast ratings and color difference ratings and stuff like that.
That's one that I really like. But these days there are so many. Yeah. So this is the first considerations. Also, if you have, you shouldn't differentiate just by color. So I'm not saying that necessarily you want girls and boys and maternity and shoes to be in a different color, but there's absolutely no differentiation between these different labels, and you probably would want that. So it's only by reading that you know that these are different categories, and you would want that. But one thing that I want to say before someone else starts talking is what I always say. The first thing that you need to think about on your homepage is, what do I want my visitor to do? First of all, you need to know exactly who your visitor is, which in this case is quite easy, because it's expectant mothers or mothers of young kids. I imagine this looks is okay. No, it is, quite all age ranges of kids, but still, who they are. So you need to give them one thing to do. I mean, the ideal thing is to think of a flow of things, their journey through the site, but especially with an e-commerce site, you need to give them one thing to do. And here I can't tell what it is that you want me to do. I have too many options, and also I can't quite read the word shop. So that's something that I would also sell to us. I don't know what that means. So that would confuse me a little bit. So choose one thing that you want them to do that's really good for them. That's the best, the sweet spot between what's the best for them and what's the best for you. So if you've got 90% discounts, I bet that's really good for you that you get rid of stock, and really good for them because 90% is great. So make it clearer, because here you're giving people too many choices that all look the same. Because as I'm looking at this, I'm not taking in, I need to think before I actually read there. It's 30, 60, and 100. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I would recommend that you do. And this is sort of an overview. One last thing that I'm going to say is that the only case where a slider is not only accepted, also even possibly recommended, is with e-commerce. So you may want bigger images. Here I know it's absolutely, everybody will crucify me, but e-commerce is the one case where sliders can be used.
You're right, though, because if I think about the only times I've ever actually looked at a slider would be when I was, say, on the Superdry website, and I'm going through all the different hoodie options. As you all know, I love my hoodies. So, yeah, you're totally right. I want to, at a glance, see what's going on, what I can find deeper in.
Yeah. Just as long as you give people options. So you must have a slider that, but the controls need to be in the hands of your user. So people have to be able to stop it, to forward it, go backwards, just as long as they're in control.
Yeah, Peter, I do have one question. Would you recommend setting up landing pages for each of those categories? I mean, not the category page where you have all the products from the category, but a landing page where people, for example, from paid traffic or email campaigns or something would land on with a bit of storytelling on them rather than just going for the sale and presenting the products.
Yeah, that would be an amazing option. And I think that these days you can drive paid traffic. You can start experimenting with Facebook ads, starting for like $5 a day, and they're building up on that. And it would be so worth it to set up landing pages. It's really great for SEO as well, even if it's paid traffic, but having landing pages with a specific keyword, so that, because this is very generic. So that's a brilliant question, Jan. Thank you so much, because as you're serving a really wide range, because from 0 to 14 is huge. So why not have separate landing pages for the products, for for maternity or for kids, for the different ages, and doing it like that, and maybe even driving paid traffic, but without a huge expense. And this is a WordPress site, so you can easily build pages yourself, and using a template, maybe look for a template that you like of a sales page and use that with your styling, obviously.
Yeah, and it would be very easy to replicate those landing pages. Like, you build the layout once and then just duplicate it for every target audience that you're serving.
Yeah, I don't know if I had a quick look in Built With. I didn't see a page builder, but then Built With.
It's a Genesis-based theme, so it's from Studio Press.
It could have Beaver Builder, Genesis.
They work with them at least, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they don't have the out of the box, the page builder, but
no, it doesn't.
They are compatible with them.
Yeah. So I don't want to hijack the conversation. So
well, there was a few things a few thoughts I had as well, just on some of the layout, but also some of the content. So this is a subject very close to my heart. If I could have been in childcare and supported pregnant moms, I would have done that, but I couldn't find a way of making it pay. So I envy the fact that they've built this business and they've got such wonderful clothing. So the photography in this is phenomenal. Now, what I've noticed is there is a bit of a story. So if you were to go all the way down to the bottom picture and go to the About page, that's hidden away. And there is a really interesting story. And the font weight is better. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
So I can already read that. But this is somebody who cares about quality, who set something up.
Yes.
This is someone who was a mother who has set this up because of the need, etc. And this is a phenomenal story. So this is hidden away right at the very bottom, and I don't actually know who is behind this. Who is Ariel? I'm not sure if that's how you say her name, or Ali, or something along those lines. So it'd be great to actually see.
We have her on Facebook.
I did have a look around. I did a bit of Facebook stalking, but I wasn't able to find quickly, at least. But it would be great to get these messages, these sorts of images, and this sort of thing in on the front of the homepage, but equally out there on social media. So I had a look through social media. Again, there was no pictures of the lady or the team behind this. But there were the odd stories that were missing from the website itself, like they donated a whole ton of stuff to charity a few weeks ago. So there was a picture of a whole load of boxes, and they were taking that off to charity, which is phenomenal. That's a great story that would be awesome back in this website as well. So blog posts, those sorts of things, information. What are they passionate about? What are they trying to raise money for? All those sorts of things. What are past stories of Ariel's, etc. So that was something I was thinking of as well as I was looking through this.
Yeah, and you know what makes me think of this wonderful story makes me think of how they could have, obviously the main aim of this website is to sell, but if you can sell by telling the story, that's much better, as you're saying, Lee. And there could be a way of leading people in by having a simple interaction on the front, on the homepage, that would not be that difficult to build, and that would take people through the story. Something that you could do with, maybe you could ask people simple questions such as, what age are your children? Do you care about the environment? Do you find yourself throwing clothes away, like that? And then ending up in I don't know if I've got it in my head. It's a bit difficult to explain, but it wouldn't be that difficult to actually create an experience like that then gets people to the right page. It's like, okay, so you have a 9-year-old child and a 6-year-old daughter, boy, and a 6-year-old daughter. These are the pages for you, and that's why you lead them. Something like that. And
I guess every quiz builder could build this. Every plugin that allows you to build a quiz or something like that would do this.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Yeah, what a wonderful story.
Yeah,
there's also the wish list. So
they're great stories. I did also I noticed that the pictures used on the homepage were quite high quality. As I dug through, I did notice though that some of the pictures look like they've been taken with maybe a mobile phone, or that they were heavily compressed as well. So there was a little bit of inconsistency with the quality of the image. So most of the images look phenomenal, so a few pictures might need retaking. But then coming off from what Jan said with regards to content for the landing pages, what does appear to be missing, I could be wrong here, is any further information on some of these products. For example, I'm looking at a Cloud Beanie, and it just has a list of categories right now. It's got no actual description.
Where is that?
Yeah.
Well, I just clicked on a random beanie in one of the...
it's most of the products, actually, I think.
Yeah, in fact, most of the products, if I click through there's very little description. This feels like it's more of a trade site as opposed to a website where parents to be would come and talk about this together. So if me and my wife were expecting we'd be sat together looking at this website, getting excited over this little bonnet that I'm looking at, and if there was some sort of little backstory, even if it was a couple of one paragraph, 100 words, just something about this, about the quality of it, about the softness of it, about the cuteness of it, or whatever. Those sorts of things tell stories. I'm a massive softie, so is my wife. Our credit card would probably be screaming at us by the end of it.
Also, another thing that I noticed is that apart from the WhatsApp contact, there's zero socials. There are no socials anywhere.
In the footer.
Two icons in the footer, but it's hard to see the footer when you're on the product pages.
That's I couldn't see them. So, and this is, I haven't had a look at the Instagram. Should I go there? Because this is so Instagrammable, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Should I go there?
The issue with those social media icons in the footer, though, is that those product pages they do have infinite scrolling. So whenever you reach the footer, the new products are loaded and push the footer down, so you have to scroll down again.
Right. Yeah. So
That
see,
makes
no,
it very hard.
that's another suggestion, because it's got a really quite very healthy amount of number of followers.
Yeah.
And
Nice
this
pins.
is, yeah, so totally go for it and go for the stories.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well, that would be great to show. It's like to share stories on social. So I noticed, for example, that the one post on social media they put on there about the donations had 74 likes. So it had lots of engagement versus, say, a picture of a dress which only had 16, because it's a flash in the pan. It only appears quickly. The other thing as well that might be worth, again, with the social content is borrow somebody's baby and put the kid in the clothes. Because then I would be like, you cutie! Look at this one, it's so fat. And just like loving the babies as well as the clothes, which also might help, because a lot of these obviously are very staged, and they look beautiful. But again, if there could at least either be that sort of story description behind them or someone's baby in there, that'd be amazing. Sorry, that was kind of off topic.
So
Babies.
nice.
Bit
I'm gonna
broody.
go. Okay. I'm gonna go into boys
So good.
accessories.
Jan, so
You want to take
I know-
control?
yeah, Jan, I noticed, like you said, with regards to things like the scrolling, what would you recommend, mate, with regards to things like speed or improving the performance, and also that issue with really compressed images?
So with the scrolling, I would turn off the infinite scrolling and just go to a page-based navigation where you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Below,
Is that what you
like,
in general.
yeah, it's probably the most common setting, and I guess I get that it is like boring, but it's just everybody knows how to use it. It's user friendly. It's not surprising. So when I first scrolled down, I didn't expect that infinite scrolling. I was kind of surprised to not see the footer, even though I expected it to. Regarding the speed optimization, let me take over the screen here.
Yeah. I have to say also, when I shop, and in shops that have infinite scrolling, I get very frustrated because it's infinite, so I can't place things. And if I want to go back to something that I liked, then I'm like, now I have to see everything again. I don't want to see it. So yes, I think pagination.
You don't know how many products are in that category at all. So it doesn't give you like this expectation of, oh, I have 10 pages to scroll through. I have like 20 pages to scroll through. You don't know how much choice you have in those shops.
Exactly. So true. So shall I stop? Do I need to stop my share so that you can stay on?
Yep.
I'll stop my share.
Alrighty. Let me see. So let me know if you can see the screen real quick.
Yeah. We've got onesies.
I can see your screen. There you go.
Very one. Oh, Batman onesies. That is so cool.
I want them.
Look
at the dungarees.
Too bad I don't fit in those anymore.
Oh, rest
so cute.
Alrighty, let's talk a little bit about performance. As we said in the beginning, I think the storytelling is more important than performance.
Yeah.
But we need to get this sorted too, because it is taking me around 4 seconds to load that page.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the homepage. So that isn't terrible, but there are some very easy wins that would help the website owner to speed up the loading process. And
can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Does it matter? Because she's in South Africa and this is
Dallas,
tested in Dallas.
Yeah.
Will it make a difference? Or?
It will make a difference, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. So depending on where your target audience is, that's actually a good point. If you're serving a target audience that's distributed across the globe, or at least across the US, probably that would be even good enough. I'm not sure about South Africa, but if you have a decently spread audience, then a content delivery network makes sense. Even though if it's just in the same country, but the country is huge, like the US, even then the CDN makes sense already. So Cloudways has this amazing stack path, I think it is, integration for like $1 per terabyte per month, which is, or per gigabyte, I think, but that's very, very cheap and easy to integrate.
So easy to set up. I'm saying that I'm not a techie, and it's really easy to set up.
Yeah, it's like 2 clicks or something from the Cloudways platform panel. Besides that, it's very easy to save a little bit of page size by optimizing images. So that's roughly, what is it? One third of the page size could be saved by just optimizing images, scaling them down from 2000 pixels by 1600 pixels to the width they're actually shown in, which is like a quarter of the size. So that is something I would highly recommend. And when you go through GTmetrix and you put your URL in there, the tool will show you exactly what images you need to work on. So that's very straightforward to work through, even if you have never seen GTmetrix before.
So how would you recommend someone who isn't a techie like you? What's the best tool? Because now she's already, the images are already up. So without having to re-upload, what's the best thing to do?
So WordPress has this image resize functionality in the media library directly, where you can resize the images. That would be the first one I would try. So I've just pulled up one of those images, and you can see it's really big.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
What you could do is you just click on one of those links that pulls up the image in a new tab. Click right click and then say save image as. Save the image to your drive, and then go to, I think that's Pick Resize or something like that. Yeah, there we go. So pickresize.com. You can upload the image there and specify the exact dimensions you want the image to be in. So I'm not doing this right now, obviously, because I don't own the image. I don't want to get into trouble here, but that would be another way to do this.
Is there a plugin that would do that for you without having to go through this? Because I'm just worried that maybe it has hundreds.
Well, for me, I would personally, I don't know if other people would recommend it because it's from WPMU, but it was the WPMU Smush. So they've got the higher tier. We actually use that in a lot of our website as a service platforms because it works with multi-site, which is the only reason why we've used it. But within it, I know that what you can do is you can follow Jan's advice by setting a maximum width and a maximum height, and then it will automatically do all of the images in the platform. It's not necessarily, I imagine from Jan, it's not necessarily recommended because I imagine if you were to resize it on your machine to get it to the right size and also use, some software to resize it, you're probably going to get a better output. But those plugins tend to be quite good nowadays. So
the issue with bulk resizing or automatically resizing based on the maximum width also is, say you have a full width slider on the website, or you have this big image, this one right here in the footer that spans across 1,000 pixels probably. You would have to have at least these 1,000 pixels as maximum width, whereas these images are like 400.
Yeah, so it would actually miss quite a lot of those images. You have to go through and find those other ones. Yeah, absolutely.
What does make sense though? Sorry, Piccia, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just saying, wouldn't it be nice to then not use images, use icons, use some other thing rather than images? So
SVG would be great, yeah.
Yeah.
SVG is a very good way.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good addition. Besides that, if you have the images on the right size, you also need to reduce the file size by stripping away some data from the image files, which once you have it in the right solution, can further reduce the file size. So a tool I love for that is called Kraken.io.
Yeah.
It is really, really good. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So you can see what companies are using it. So if Tesla uses it, it's good enough for me. And they do have this free web interface. One downside, it's free. So one downside is you have to go one by one through the images, I think. Or you can upload a zip now, actually. So it's not as comfortable. They do have a WordPress plugin that automates this process, which is included in the free tier. So, I mean, come on, it's $5 a month for 500 megabytes of images.
I mean, for an e-commerce website, images are the most important thing.
Yeah. So that a really good investment. Besides that, if you want to go the full way, I recommend WP Compress, which is kind of its own content delivery network for images. So they handle everything. They optimize the images. They make the images as small in file size as they need to be, and they serve them from their own content delivery networks. So that's a really powerful tool. Highly recommend that. And also their founder, James Cantoni, is a really good dude. So he's on Facebook. And if you have any questions, he's super helpful. That's another great way to optimize the images. Besides that, I don't want to take up too much of Lee's time. So I will just focus on one more thing that caught my eye. And when I go to the waterfall view right here, I can see every resource that has been loaded. And the obvious thing to do is to combine all these CSS files and all these JavaScript files using the Cloudways Breeze plugin, the caching plugin. That's just 2 clicks, 2 check marks that you need to enable. And then,
so can we? I'm just thinking that maybe Aurelie doesn't know as much as we do. I don't know if obviously I'm not. I can't assume, but so for someone who doesn't know exactly what you're talking about, what does she? How do you do that, basically?
Let me just log into my website. It should be on my website. So there we go. It is basically in the plugins section of WordPress. There is the Breeze plugin. Make sure that you get one that is signed by Cloudways so that you get the right one. And when you go to settings inside Breeze, you have these minification options, which basically strip away all the line breaks, all the empty spaces, all the unnecessary signs in those code files, reducing the file size doing this. You want to enable gzip compression and browser cache to reduce the file size even further. And when you go to the advanced options, you want to enable the group files functionality. And one caveat here that's very important is do your research on how to set this up with WooCommerce. It is not as easy with WooCommerce as it is with a regular website. So be careful with this and please test thoroughly. I'm sure in the Cloudways users group, you'll find plenty of help if you have any questions about this. And I'm in there too, so I'm happy to help.
Also maybe on a staging site, which is really easy to set up on Cloudways, really easy.
Jan, another question that's come in as well from Andrea. Hey, Andrea. She uses Photoshop for her own images. How could she optimize them before uploading so that she's not having to do them within the website?
That's a good question. Photoshop, first of all, allows you to save the images in the right resolution in the first hand. So you should do your research. Let me go to the website right here. That's Bitty Fox. Let me go to the homepage. For example, if I want to see how big this image is, what I would do is I am in Chrome right now, by the way. I would right click on the image, go on inspect, and then Chrome would show me the image size in the tooltip. I'm not sure if that's readable on the share screen, but the blue square that shows the tooltip above it, it says 225 by 225. So that will be the size to save the image in. And then in Photoshop, there is this legacy option. I think that's called Save Images for Web or Optimize Images for Web, something like that. And I would use that and set the quality to probably like 60%, something like that.
And then
I know the shortcut. The shortcut on a Mac is Command-Alt-Shift-S.
Yes.
Okay. That brings it up.
Yeah. So that will be the way to optimize images in Photoshop. That's how I do it in Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've got a few things that I'd love to talk about as well. You're right if I share my screen, because there's a couple of things just content wise that as we've talked, I've realized that there are what we are looking at is ridiculously cool. So if you don't mind stopping your share. Oh, sorry, Karen.
I just have one thing
go for
that really was important, because that one function is called get refreshed fragments in WooCommerce that takes up like 600 milliseconds of the loading time, and you don't really need it. that is a function that WooCommerce uses to update the cart status, like when you add a product to the cart, without refreshing the page. And that's something that you don't need because you don't have that cart icon on the page, and you don't have that counter that shows you how many items you have in the cart. So if you just Google disable cart fragments in WooCommerce, you'll find up many articles that give you this code snippet to add to your functions PHP and to disable this. There was a plugin for that, but that plugin has been discontinued, unfortunately.
I would actually, sorry. My screen was starting to go really slow. So I would actually say just carry on sharing yours. And do you mind just going to the about page on the website?
Of course.
Because there's some things I can talk about then with regards to it. So Zoom's doing its classic, everything's now chopping. And I don't want to click on anything because I don't want to get the Microsoft Windows spinny icon. So if we go back to the about page, I realized something about this as we've been talking about it. There's actually really exciting, and I think that we're missing a trick here, and that the people behind this are missing a trick. This is actually, and I didn't realize until now, that this, I think predominantly all of this is actually secondhand clothing. So this is all clothing that has been used and loved by other people, that have been cared for, etc., and then is being resold on. So obviously we're getting great quality clothes at much less, and their mission was to change the way that secondhand clothing is perceived by the market. So they've created this brand, and that it's only just dawned on me because it was buried down in the about page. So this is something that I do feel should be trumped from the homepage, which also then helps people understand why they would want to sell their clothing to them as well. So it would be awesome on the homepage. Maybe if we can skip back to the homepage,
Yep.
I do think it would be awesome if this homepage could get some treatment, so that we could maybe have some sort of big, bold statement that helps people understand what is happening here, why this is very unique, and why other people might want to get involved.
Nothing.
Exactly. So
I didn't know that. I didn't.
No, I noticed when you said go to the about page earlier, Lee. That's when I read it. But otherwise, there's nothing here that tells you this amazing story.
It's
just
phenomenal.
Amazing.
I mean, so we still have clothes from Ella. She's now 13 years old, and we've kept them in immaculate condition. And then what we do is we hand them off to other people in our church, and we just all share clothes. So there's young girls at our church right now who are still wearing Ella's clothes from like 6 or 7 years ago. And that's just something we do within a community because that's what you naturally do. But that's just a wonderful story that we can share and we can use internally. But this is taking it to a whole new level. And I actually think that's really exciting. And I'm passionate about this now. I've read it, but holy crap, it's in the wrong place. It's hidden away in the footer in the about page. So I do think that they can make something of this, and they can also make something of this through the content they're putting on social media. And they actually have, in theory, ready-made stories that can go with these clothes, because if people are selling these clothes in, perhaps they could actually say, hey, what's the story behind this one, or anything else like that as well, which would add just some extra, I don't know, some extra emotion as well, as it were, to the product itself. This was my son Michael's. He was, I don't know, baptized in
really
it, blah, blah,
simple
blah.
form. Yeah, you could create a really simple form that people fill in like 2 seconds, and that makes them feel that it's about them. You know what I mean? The parents selling the clothes can tell a story about their own child. Who wouldn't want to do that?
And it's so easy to automate that and to put that form content into WordPress and into Instagram stories and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So good, yeah.
So, for example, if they had, say, a form plugin like Formidable Forms or Gravity Forms, which are both available inside of for WordPress, you can have it so that they would be posted as a draft product, which the admin can then approve and make that live as well. What I think is happening, though, is I think the products are actually coming in to the central place where they're actually taking pictures and they're selling them individually, and also I presume selling them in a shop. I'm only guessing that because there is a picture of like a stock room, so I think that's what's happening, which is also completely fine. So that might not necessarily work for them, but just the fact that they can get these stories in, and that this is something I think which is really special. We're helping the environment here. Holy crap, I would be like shouting from the rooftops about this. I would be shouting all over over social media as well. And again, that also now makes sense as to why there is the iconography with regards to the recycle further down in their social media story. So it just feels like this website right now comes across as excuse me, as a brand of new clothes for parents, and people expecting children with young children, etc., which makes it not stand out from the crowd. But what this site is doing is so phenomenally cool. That they are totally missing a trick here without pushing that story out there.
They need 2 landing pages. They need one landing page for people wanting to buy the clothes, and they need one landing page for people to sell their clothes to them. It's 2 entirely separate audiences.
Sure, but at the same time, that homepage needs to scream this message. They are doing something so unique that people need to be talking about this. I've noticed that they were in a magazine, the Baba magazine, but this, again, is so unique. They should be getting themselves in any industry magazine that they can, and on any podcast they can that parents would be listening to. Because, again, that's going to give exactly. So, for example, the Dashleys, they've got their family podcast where they talk about parenting, etc. So this, the lady behind this would be great to get on the Dashley's podcast and share how she's created a business with secondhand clothing, etc. The Dashleys would love that sort of thing, and they've got thousands of parents, obviously around the world. So that's broader. If these guys are only focused, in the South Africa area or wherever they are, they can still push and get some podcasts going. Maybe do some live streams talking about those. But there's so much. This is such a story-rich business. I wish I knew this right at the beginning. Oh my gosh! Sorry. All right, I'll calm down now. Coming into land.
But that's a really good, that's a proof of the fact that, I mean, we were specifically reviewing this. We were looking at this in detail, and we only found out after looking at it really closely. So that's proof of the fact that normal people will not see it because they're only there for the clothes. So they may notice after a while that they're all different brands and they're not new collection. But
exactly,
that really proves to you that you need to focus on this. We love it.
Well, for me as well then, so if I'm looking for, clothes for my children, I know that I am doing something. I'm going to model to my children, to my elder daughter, for example, if we had a younger one, that I'd be modeling to them that we're not wasteful, that we're actually buying good quality clothes that have been pre-used. But also behind this, you can see, if you read through the about page again, you can see that they really care about, making sure these clothes are clean, that they have been, mended or whatever, they have been looked after. So these are being presented as good quality clothing, etc. So these are all stories that they can share. These are all things that would make me want to buy and make me feel good. So that's playing towards the feel good factor of your audience. I mean, there is scope here for blogging and scope here as well for videos about how you can extend the life of your clothing, or how you can, all sorts of just avenues that they could go down. They, like you said earlier, they've got that strong social media presence with about 4,000 followers on Facebook. Sorry, not Facebook, on Instagram. So again, these are things that they could start to do, and perhaps they could look to guest on podcasts, or they could guest blog posts or whatever, but just maybe reach out, because what they have, I think, is really exciting. And I'd never heard of this until I actually really deep dived into this, trying to work out what was going on.
So what I'm noticing here, that you already closes with "join us on our journey," but there's nothing, and I'd be like, how do I do that? So there should be a button there, "join us on a journey," and that goes
to an email form and allows Aurelie to further tell the story.
Because then if you say here, for instance, another point is sign up and save all year long. Now, with UX, is it the same message as join us on our journey? Because I don't understand what the difference is. Excuse me. It's 2 different things, isn't it? Sign up is not quite join us. Hang on.
Yeah, agreed. I think that the wording is different and causes a break in the communication flow.
Excuse me. Well, so I'm wondering whether sign up and save all year long, does it mean that you have a subscription service? That's what the wording makes me think. So I'm wondering whether you do that, or whether you just mean that your service makes you save 90%. Actually, it's just occurred to me that on the homepage, the save 90% doesn't mean that they've got sales on. It means that their clothes are 90% cheaper than clothes in shops. It's only just occurred to me.
From retail.
how would I know that? Because there's nothing that tells me that these are secondhand shops on the homepage. So I'm only just realizing now that you just mean that you are, you are 90% cheaper in general. There's no discounts. There's no sales on. It's not January sales. So that's what
But that's behind the story, isn't it? I mean, it's what they do. What they have created is something that's so phenomenal. It's a great idea. It's not wasteful, and it's just such a shame that they're not shouting this from the rooftops. I mean, obviously we can give UI advice, color advice, and all that sort of stuff, but their PR game is like off right now. And it's
an opportunity, not a shame. It's an opportunity, Lee. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I totally agree. I'm just kind of like, I want to become their PR manager now because I'm just so excited about the idea.
Yeah.
It's just such a great idea, and I think as well that's the problem, isn't it? And to the site owner, hey, well done. This is a great idea, but because this is something that we are a part of, like this has been her idea. She's kind of used to it, and to her it doesn't feel. I guess it doesn't feel like the big sell, and perhaps she might feel that she needs to compete with some of the other brands, etc., and look like more of a typical brand clothing store for families, etc. But actually, what she has is so unique and so exciting. I think that should become very much the forefront of what she does, and that will actually dictate a lot of what she does with regards to her branding as well, because if she's going to make it more personal and more family orientated with regards to who's involved in this, then I do think that will have a massive positive impact as well on the people coming in and buying, knowing that they are actually becoming a part of that journey because they know who is in that journey. They can see pictures of Ariel, they can see pictures of other people who are involved, they understand that they are taking clothes from other families, etc., that these clothes have a history, that these clothes have a story. So yeah, it's just so cool. I'll shut up. No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's wonderful, but I never would have guessed when I first went, none of us, when we first linked on the page and decided, I would not have guessed at all.
Now, if we could go back, just a UX question would be great. Could we go to a product page just to see if there's anything we can also recommend to help with regards to the actual purchasing process, and just have a look at the checkout form as well? I think that would be great just to wrap up with as we come into land. So just click on any product and let's take a look.
Right. So I think that more than the product was the previous page what was more interesting. So here you have add to basket.
Do you want me to go back to the archive?
What I mean is, because it's just especially with something like this that is incredibly varied. If you're a normal shop, you have collections, it's much easier to categorize. Mm-hmm. Well, here you have always different items. So she's got good filters, because there's filters by size, then categories, meaning what type of garments. So that's good. And then brands. So you can even go by brand, colors. These filtering is done really well, I would say, because filtering is key. You just think of eBay. Think how many filters you have on eBay. Whenever, I think every the filters in eBay are much better than Amazon. I was after a pair of trainers recently, and I just gave up on Amazon because there were no filters. I couldn't choose the color, I couldn't choose the size. It was just a nightmare. Whereas on eBay, it's so granular what you can choose. And here it's done quite well, because it's even got the material. That's really, really good. New, no tag, new with tag, excellent condition. And that tells you that she only deals with things in excellent condition, because that's all you get. So it's either new or excellent condition. So I would say, what would you say? Because you two are parents. Would you say, when you're selecting something, what else would you have? I mean, you've got color, you've got material.
I'm interested in color, I'm interested in the condition, and I'm also interested in practical things like the size and the age range of the child that I would be fitting it for, particularly because I would be considering Ella now, who's just turned 13. I mean, obviously that's too old now, but if I rewind a few years, I would be thinking, all right, she's age 3, but she kind of tends to fit into 4 to 5 year old stuff because she's so tall, because she always has been. So that was one thing that we would want to consider, etc. etc. And then the same for the parents. So in fact, maternity clothing was one of the biggest things that we could not find with Ella. And in fact, I've got a couple of friends who are pregnant, and they both struggle to find maternity clothing. So again, that's the sort of thing they'd be interested with regards to those sorts of sizes, because this has got a whole maternity clothing section as well.
How odd that you wouldn't. I would have thought there would be a huge.
It's surprising. We would travel to many shops. I mean, given that was 12 years ago, but even the people that we know who are pregnant right now are struggling with those as well. Do you mind if we though go into one of those products and just go and check out as well, just to make sure there's no other blockers? So what could we recommend there? So you've added to cart.
Add to basket. Automatic add to basket is really good.
Yeah,
great.
It could be a good idea to test to automatically open the basket, and at that point
I have just one observation, that add to wish list, there's nothing there telling me in the interface that that's an interactive thing. I only know because the words tell me, but it doesn't look interactive at all. So I would recommend that, because I don't know that's what that does. I don't know that's
and then if we go to the basket and the checkout, just to see if there's anything else.
That's another good point. How do I get to the basket right now?
I'm not sure.
Add to basket.
So it's added to basket.
I'll add it to basket again.
And then I presume the only other option.
Okay.
I want to start. Okay.
I cannot buy one. Okay. View basket.
So a quick fix there would be a basket icon or a cart icon at the top of the website as well is definitely missing. And then we can see what we're buying. We can see our quantity, etc.
The thing about quantities is that obviously she probably just has one of each, because they're at one-offs. So
presumably, unless she's got stock in from, because presumably as well, some people might be selling stock or removing stock. So how are we doing basket? If we go down to the basket totals and that, and is it obvious? Is there do we have a massive form to fill in? Is there anything that we can recommend there?
I think these forms for the coupon code and gift card do need some reworking here. It's not very professional to have the text cut off. And also the proceed to checkout button should probably be somewhere here instead of update basket, or maybe even on top of the page, because I have to scroll down quite a bit to see it.
I think it's because because she wants delivery options before you proceed to checkout, I guess. And also, just something else. I would have the buttons don't look that interactive. I would give them a gradient or something like that to make them look interactive. I mean, the type observations still stand, of course. It's not very legible. But then it's confusing that proceed to checkout is the same color as apply coupon, apply gift card, or update basket, because these buttons do different things. So
and the gray hover,
too uniform.
And the gray hover doesn't help with legibility.
No, not at all. And also, when you gray something out, don't gray something out when it's active, because usually the norm is that when you gray something out, it's because it's not working, or it's inactive, or it's being used already. So I would definitely change that color. I think you should have a bit more of a palette, because the palette is very limited here, which is a good thing in a way. But you should use have a stronger orange, like the orange in the fox, and then use tints and shades of that. So make it dark, use the brightness, make it brighter or darker, and then maybe have a gray. I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail because it's a lot, but you definitely need different colors for buttons that do different things. And the buttons that do the same type of action should have similar words, similar copy, because otherwise it gets confusing, because I don't know what.
I think we're running a bit short on time here. Should we just...
Well, there's a couple of things then I would also say, just to wrap up on this checkout. If she doesn't actually have gift cards or coupons, because some people actually don't, and there are default messages that might be appearing from WooCommerce. She does? Okay, that's great. But very often you don't, at least at these points, you don't need to necessarily show all those, because it might stop someone from buying, because they're going to go off and Google if there's any coupon codes anywhere, and you might lose the person. So don't make too much of a thing of it, but at least provide the option. Otherwise, this looks like our standard kind of default WooCommerce form. It's not too off-putting. Is there a credit card section further down?
Can I also add something?
Yes, there's some fast ways to pay as well, which is good. Yeah, carry on, Piccia.
because if I had actually the fact that it's rand, the R tell me already where it is, but apart from the URL, there isn't anything else unless I go deep into the copy that tells me that this is in South Africa. So maybe as a parent, I might go through everything, not notice the currency, and then go, oh damn it, I can't.
You can only have the shipping country as South Africa.
Yeah. So I would make it clear, to be nice to people who then don't, maybe don't trail through the whole website. I would say it somewhere that this is a South African business and you're not shipping abroad, because that's just to be kind to people who may love it and then just realize they'd be bitterly disappointed when they realize that they can't.
One more thing to this form right here is I would move the email address field right to the top of the billing details. The reason is if somebody enters the email address and then drops out of the form, you would still be able to retarget that email address and add them to an email campaign to recapture the sale from leaving cart.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right, folks. Jan, if you don't mind unsharing your screen, I'd love to try and do a wrap up and see if I can actually remember everything that we've said. So this has been great. There's been some phenomenal questions as well on the live Facebook feed. So thank you for everybody who contributed in that. I can see that some people as well have given some great advice in there. So if you've watched this live stream, I would highly recommend that you head back in and take a look through the comments. I've shared a few tools and other people have shared tools as well. Now, some of the big lessons I think that we can learn from this particular review is that there are some really important things that we can do with regards to usability of a website as a beginning point, especially around things like the weights of your font, and the colors. So that's remembering that there are people with visual impairment and there are old folks like me and Piccia who actually need glasses. I'm actually not wearing my glasses because I'm far too vain for the camera, but I actually can't read a lot of this website without them. So to out of respect of us old people, it would be fantastic if things like that could be done. So using, say, the contrast checker, etc. Other things that were mentioned, at least during the UX review, was again that contrast between the buttons, making those buttons look more like buttons, and also making sure that we can kind of differentiate between all of those categories. With regards to things like the speed and that, Jan shared things like there was massive images of over 1,000 pixels wide that could be completely resized down. And also, again, in the comments of the live feed, you'll be able to see a couple of tools in there, including Kraken, I think it was, which Tesla used to allow you to compress images, etc. But obviously, there is a combination of resizing certain images locally because you don't need to upload an icon that's 1,000 pixels big. So resize that locally before then putting that up. And also Piccia also suggested that we opt for SVG where possible. So again, a lot of this iconography on here is probably designed by a designer, therefore the SVG files can be used. And there is a plugin called Safe SVG for WordPress, which will allow you then to upload SVG images, etc. to your website. He also shared with regards to the JavaScript and a few other tools. I can't remember all them, but he was also talking about where you test from as well. So if you're testing your website, make sure you're testing from a server where your target audience is. So be sure to watch the replay back if you have your own website and you are looking for ways just to add some small subtle improvements. If you look at that, that was 4 seconds that it was loading from when Jan did the test. But it's amazing what an impact those things that Jan has suggested will have. And it could knock a whole second or two off the load speed of a website. And that's actually very important, especially on a website like this, where somebody is going from page to page to page and it's very graphically heavy. I'm going to get sick of waiting for 4 seconds to look at every piece of content and to move on and to build up my basket. So actually, for something like this, super, super important. So make sure you watch the replay for that as well. And then we kind of wrapped up as well with a few content discussions. We were talking about the fact we didn't realize the amazing story behind this particular website. And it's super important that she puts that front and center. So we talked about how can we get that messaging in there? How can we get people involved in that story? How can they improve their social media posts, etc.? We actually compared one of their social media posts where you had somebody who, they'd shared a post about donating to charity and how that had way more interaction than any of the other really nice posts in there as well. So very much, evolving this website to become less like a cookie cutter e-commerce site and to become more of a, hey, look at this movement we are doing. Look at how we are helping the environment. Look at the quality of our clothing. Look at who is behind this, etc. And then just at the very end, we noticed things like there was no add to basket, and we went through the checkout process. So there was a few things in there as well that they could improve just by giving, that visual feedback. So you know that you've got a button, you can see that color contrast, but also being able to quickly go ahead and check out. And as we wrap up, Piccia, you mentioned as well that make it obvious the country it's in. I mean, I guess it kind of is because it's co.za, and for me, if I was on a co.uk, I'd probably know it was going to be UK based. But at the same time, there might need to be something like that. I might assume if I'm in France that they might deliver to me if it was a co.uk. So I guess that might be something important. It does say free deliveries on orders over R600. So presumably they could also put some sort of messaging in there. But that's essentially it, folks. Before we go, remember, it's going to be the second Tuesday of every single month. So please do join us. Please do continue to submit your sites. Please do check out those comments. If we start with Jan, how can we connect with you? And we'll be wrapping up after that. So Jan?
Yeah, the best way is via Facebook usually. So you can find me in the Cloudways user group. I also have my own group, WP Mastery, and my website is wpmastery.xyz.
And Piccia?
Yeah, with Facebook Barflies. So Facebook too. Cloudways users group, and also I have a group which is Design for Geeks, where we talk about this kind of thing all day long and do reviews as well there as well.
Exactly.
Please.
And then there's me, Agency Trailblazer podcast, and also Agency Trailblazer group. You'll find me in the Cloudways user group as well. Massive fan of Cloudways. So folks, all that's left for us to do is to do a cheesy wave until we are told by the technical team that we are no longer live. And I don't know when that will be. Maybe we should